In a 15-1 vote, the International Court of Justice rejected Nicaragua's request to order Germany to stop arming Israel. In 2023, roughly 30% of Israel's military equipment was supplied by Germany, and Nicaragua argued that Germany was complicit in Israel's genocide on Palestinians. Germany argued that 3 of the 4 export licenses were related to non-lethal material, and that 98% of military transfers after October 7th were non-military in nature. This swayed the court to rule in favor of Germany. This is a tough thing. Getting a country to not send weapons, or to not send military equipment, or to not militarily fund somebody is tough. And in order to make the case at the level of the International Court of Justice, you get The Hague involved. You got to be able to prove that the weapons are actually causing the genocide. Germany wasn't going to go down without a fight. One, they get paid from weapons, right? Weapons transfers, weapon sales, they get paid from it. 2, Germany has a long history of complicity and really shielding Israel from accountability in the international community for a variety of reasons. I think much of Europe, particularly Western Europe, much of Western Europe has been complicit in Israel's apartheid state, Israeli genocide, Israeli occupation, because of the extraordinary guilt felt by Europe for the evils that Europe committed, the evil actions, the awful, indefensible, despicable behavior that European nations either created or enabled against Jewish people. So, the UK was directly responsible, right? France directly responsible. Russia, Poland, Ukraine directly responsible, right? So Europe, the Western Europe, but really all of Europe is responsible for the pogroms against Jewish people, the Holocaust, the genocide, whatever language, whatever framework, whatever historical juncture you look at, there has been extraordinary evil against Jewish people, and Europe has been at the center of it. And so much of the hands-off approach, or the enabling approach that we see from Europe against Israel right now, I think has a lot to do. It's rooted in the very appropriate guilt that Europe feels for the evils that they committed against Jewish people around the world. There's another way to respond to that guilt, though. South Africa took a different approach than Germany, right? South Africa says, we were an apartheid state. We know genocide. We know ethno-states. We know racism. We know institutional inequality. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use every ounce of our institutional being, every bit of energy we can muster politically, diplomatically, legally, to prevent another genocide, to dismantle other apartheid states. That's why it was so powerful that South Africa was the country that took Israel to the International Court of Justice on charges of genocide. Germany, however, has done the opposite. They said, you know what, we committed one of the most atrocious, horrific acts in human history. The Nazi Holocaust is one of the most almost indescribably disgusting, atrocious, vicious, brutal, inhumane. I mean, these words are insufficient to describe how awful the Holocaust was. And Germany's response to the Holocaust is now to enable Israel to commit acts of injustice, acts of violence, acts of inequality against the Palestinian people. And so Nicaragua going to the ICJ was an attempt to stop that, to say, hey, wait a minute, we need to do something different here. The problem is, again, this wasn't the best case to make against Germany. This wasn't the best case because so many of the weapons that Germany is getting, or giving rather, were not directly for war. Not in this case. Doesn't mean Germany's wrong, but it just means in this case, it's a harder argument to defend when 3 of the 4 export licenses were related to non-lethal material, and 98% of the military transfers post October 7th were non-military in nature. Look, y'all see the ICJ, they're not soft, and they're not trying to be complicit with any of this. So the fact that they said no tells you something. But it raises another question. What about America? What about America? Because we send a lot of weapons, and them weapons be weaponing. U.S. weapons get used in acts of violence. Will the U.S. be brought up on charges of genocide and through complicity? Because the conventions on genocide aren't just about they're not just about the mens rea, the guilty mind. They're not just about the act of genocide. They're also about every state's duty to prevent genocide. And the U.S. doesn't prevent genocide, and we're complicit in genocide through the money, through the weapons, and I would argue through diplomatic and international legal cover, vetoing ceasefires, for example. But that's a whole other story for another time. So Germany didn't win, or rather, Nicaragua didn't win. Germany won that battle.